Hi, thank you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to talk with you. So we're very excited to have you here. And as you know, we'll be discussing nurturing Indian athletes for the Olympics and the Paralympics. So there's about 2 months and 2 weeks or so left to the 100th Olympic Games. So we're really excited about that. And as a sports industry body involved in advocacy around Indian sports, we're all geared up for this. So we thought it was only fitting to have the two of you who have seen a few Olympic cycles come on board and bring to the table your insights around working with athletes or participating, in your case, Shiva. And yeah, so we have Miss Deepthi Bopaiah, who is the CEO at GoSports Foundation, and it supports junior, emerging, and elite athletes across the Olympic and Paralympic disciplines. Mr. Shiva Keshavan is a luge athlete who's a six-time Winter Olympian and deputy chef de mission for Paris 2024 Team India. So both of you have such a long list of credits to your name that I'd like you to take us through the journey, your journey in the career in different capacities. And I know we have a lot of ground to cover. Yeah, I mean, first of all, could you please introduce yourselves?
You first, Deepthi.
That's
I thought you already introduced us. Shiva,
just a
always
primer.
in the bus. Well, hi, I'm Deepthi Bopaiah. I'm based in Bangalore. I head the GoSports Foundation. I've had the wonderful opportunity to play sport myself very early on, but I couldn't really make it to the top at the Olympics. And I decided to follow the academic route and completed my MBA, and then I did what most people do, which was find a job. And I was a banker for 6 years with HSBC, and I finally found my calling, thinking, what is my purpose and what am I really doing in life? And sport was the calling that always, was there. But I did not know how to navigate that passion and bring it into what I want to do for sport. But I was very fortunate to meet my trustees then, and who had set up Go Sports. And I moved here about 11 years now since I've done that. I've seen three, going to see, I think, my the next Paris, Olympics. But it's been amazing to see how Indian sport has grown year on year and every 4 years. But I think it's a culmination of many, many stakeholders, many, many individuals, many people who've come forward, and most importantly, athletes who've really put in their blood, sweat, tears into, making it to the top. Uh, but what we are most excited about at Go Sports is, how do you really build a ecosystem around the athlete, which helps them get to their best potential. So I think that's really our attempt. And we are a bridge between corporate India and athletes to kind of find the right set of partners to give you the funding that you need to excel in your sport, and also on the sports side, create an ecosystem around you to excel as well. So that's really my introduction. I'm going to let Shiva introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks, Deepthi. I think that was really well said. And what's been so exciting being part of sports in this point in time is that we're really part of a very quick, fast evolving story. And history is being made right now in India. What we do right now in this space is going to have really, really long term impact. So just to be involved and to be there driving this change is amazing. And that's one of the things that I also aspired to while I was an athlete. So I started my sports career in the early 90s, I guess. My first Olympics was in 98. By then I was already doing a number of sports. And if I think back, I was such a confident little kid. I mean, I felt that, I could go for any sport, and I felt that I could succeed. So it was, to myself, it was more of a choice, which way should I take? Even though Olympics wasn't the goal, but being competitive in what you do, trying to be the best at what you do is part of the sports culture. That's something that sport brings to the table for the development of a country. So yeah, when I started winter sports, the area I live, I was born and grew up. At that point, there was barely a road. There was no electricity. In the winter, we would be cut off for 3 months at a time without any electricity, no supplies coming in. We had to stock up. And as kids, we used to find ingenious ways to, pass the time during winter. And all of us, we were very excited when the first snowfall would set in. Then there would be, all of us would get together and do whatever we could. We used to build our own sleds, go down the hill. That was one of the first activities that I can remember, winter activities. We used to build our own skis with, wood and piece of laminate metal sheet under the wood, which was probably taken from some old saw. And that's how we started. So, compare it to Europe or something like that. That's, centuries, centuries of evolution in a few decades. And then I got to a point where, of course, I got the opportunity to try out for this new sport, for me at that time at least, called luge. It is the Olympic form of sledding. It is a high-speed form of sledding, go at about 150 kilometers an hour. And I was really passionate about it because I felt, it appealed to my sense of adventure, speed, thrill, and then it gave me the opportunity to get involved with the high performance sports ecosystem, which is what I think really, got me and made me understand, how self-improvement is possible through, dedication, determination, following a set process, and of course having an entire ecosystem of people behind you that is working towards that goal. It's a great feeling, and especially when things click and then when you can celebrate all together. So yeah, since my until 2018 was my last. After 2018 and 22, I was the head coach of the Argentinian luge delegation. So I got a little bit of experience as a coach as well, and also got involved a lot in athlete advocacy. Speaking about athletes being involved in the decision-making process. This is also an important topic of our times. And and now the helping to work and supporting current lot as a chef de mission in Paris. One of the important. I mean, it's a huge honor for me, first of all, and just to bring the athlete's perspective to the table. And I think that's what this role is about: is to make sure that the athlete's experience at the Olympics is comfortable, that they can give their best, and they make the best use of this possibly once in a lifetime opportunity, right? Because it's not just about those days; it's what you build from them. So yeah, that's about it, I think, in terms of intro.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's super insightful, and what a journey, right? Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd like to understand from you, from the kind of amenities, from the kind of support structure that you had starting out in the Winter Olympics, to the kind of support that you try to provide to your athletes today. What are some things that you maybe found personally that you could have done with some support on, that you try to give to the athletes you work with today?
Okay, so I think that the time it took me and I had a relatively long career for any athlete, and I think that helped me to eventually address and overcome a lot of the issues and hurdles that athletes have. However, I think at a development stage, at a induction stage, if you have a guide, if you have a mentor, if you have somebody um, who can instill the fundamentals and the correct fundamentals, right? That would have made my journey a lot faster to reach to a certain level. I think it took me maybe over 10 years to win my first international medal. And even at that point, I was rediscovering some of the basics because I didn't have anybody to guide me at a young stage, right? So I think, first of all, one of the things that I can say is that, talent scouting, understanding. I'm not talking about early specialization, but I'm talking about identifying potential in various broad categories where young athletes can be already identified. And then it gives us more time to groom them towards a certain direction and then eventually towards a certain specialization. So that is something that needs to be systemic. So that's not something that you can expect an athlete or a family to know because they don't have this base knowledge or they're not equipped for it. So put systems in place so that we can really unlock our potential as a country, which is basically our demographics, right? We have that is an almost infinite resource for us compared to other countries, but we're not using that advantage, right? So if we want to grow as a sporting nation, one is we really need to work on that. And then, of course, as you head up, the long-term model, development of athletes, you look at it, you don't define it just by, the end goal, which might last you, a minute, an hour, a day in your, decades-long career. It's about developing basic skills initially, social skills, technical skills, tactical skills, the value system. I think these are the important things that need to be developed. And then once you have a young athlete that has had a positive experience playing a sport, you will find that throughout his or her life, that athlete will want to be associated with that sport or give back to that sport. Part of the reason I think why cricket is successful in India is because we've all played it at a young age. We had a good time. We had friends, and we can identify with it. Even if we forget it at some subconscious level, right? And which is also why we're all experts when we get in front of the TV, right? Because we've been there. And so to make this experience meaningful for athletes is one thing. And then when we get into more high performance, we need to understand, the scientific method of training, get top experts, but not be overly reliant on these experts. So how do we plan to, assimilate this into our system in the long term? I mean, there's a lot to there's a lot to delve into, but I've tried to summarize.
I do understand and I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like some strides have been taken, but there's still a long way to go to reach our potential as like for Indian athletes to reach their potential. And that's what we hope to do in this conversation with the both of you as well, to put the athlete and the coach front and center and as it should be. So Deepthi, GoSports Foundation is all about enabling sporting excellence. And the foundation was also the recipient of Rashtriya Khel Protsahan Puraskar in 2019. So could you share with us some of your experiences working with athletes across the Olympics and Paralympics disciplines and maybe some of your main takeaways, especially with regard to this sports-based value system that Shiva mentioned?
Sorry, I was on mute. It was very nicely put by Shiva in terms of what does an athlete need to do in terms of if you really enjoy the sport and you love the sport, you'll always be connected to the sport, right? So I think paying it forward, coming back and making sure that, current athletes have a better kind of experience than what their seniors had. I think that's a very interesting perspective. For us at GoSports, when we started, I think the attempt was just around the narratives that were there, around sport in India, that Indians cannot do well at the world stage. We can be great doctors and engineers and scientists, but sport, I don't think so. You just had few of them who really made it, but despite the system, it was not a system creating and churning athletes, right? And this was way back, I would say 15, 20 years ago. But then 2008, when Abhinav actually won his Olympic gold medal, it kind of changed a lot of things, right? It created that belief and hope that, hey, we can also win the individual Olympic gold medal. We won hockey medals in the past, but I think being able as an individual to really go and win that medal and what that medal means for India more than anything else, right? That we can do it. And today, when you look at so many things are happening around us, I think sports is one of those unique platforms that you have to, there are no shortcuts in sports. And I think any athlete you speak to, you will realize that it's really difficult when you're 13, 14, 15. You have friends going out for movies and you are probably going for an evening training, or you're missing, you have to sleep in early, you have to wake up the next morning at 5. So sports builds a lot of character. And a lot of these athletes have made that attempt to take that path. Now, for us, it just felt only right that if somebody has chosen to take that path and has the talent, can you really create an ecosystem around them? Can you be a support team around them to make it easier? Because there are so many, I mean, you probably lose more than you win. So you really need a team that believes in you and supports you and guides you and mentors you, like you said. And uh, even to find who should I be talking to for my sports science, which mental conditioning expert should I speak to? I have got injured, but I need something else. For many, many years in India, the coach has actually played every possible role. And we should be very grateful to all our coaches, because they've been nutritionists, sports science experts, mental conditioning experts, parents. They've done so much, right? But as we've evolved, I think it's important to realize that you need experts in the field. And that's what world sport is teaching us. Today, if you look at football games, you look at hockey games, you have your team along with the expert team who's monitoring you, who's evaluating your performance. Are you sleeping well? Are you eating right? Are you recovering well? There's so many elements. And when you're young, you can do a lot of things, but it's important that as I would say someone like a Shiva being part of 6 Olympics is phenomenal, because most athletes, even getting to 2 Olympics is really tough. It's a challenge, because you're keeping 8 years of your life in that mode. So 2 elements that are very critical for us is really in terms of the long-term health of an athlete, because it's not a short-term, it's a marathon, right? It's not, you can't become an Olympian in 2 years. I mean, it very rarely, unless you're exceptionally gifted and talented. So it is a 8-10 year journey. So how do you ensure that a talented athlete gets all the opportunity to become the best version of themselves and win at the best possible place? And that could be the Asian Games, that could be the Commonwealth, and ultimately the Olympics and the Paralympics. So for us, it's always been both, able-bodied athletes and athletes with disabilities, because it is the pinnacle of sport. It's 3 weeks apart. So, while there is a lot of sympathy attached to para athletes, I think it should not be, because it's a really competitive arena. And, lots of our athletes have been doing exceptionally well. We've been very fortunate to kind of start something called as a Para Champions program, which is, set the path to create Paralympic medals. And also the ecosystem has changed. We're fortunate to be part of athletes' journeys, such as, Kidambi Shrikant. When we picked him up, he was somewhere in the 200s in the world, right up to world #1. And we grew as a foundation to understand what does it take to be in the team of an athlete. I think just saying you're part of the team, forget you, we don't make athletes, right? They are supremely talented. And I think that's something a lot of people end up saying, this is our athlete and we have made this. And it is the athlete. The athlete is at the center of everything, and we're the support team around it. So even to be part of an athlete's journey, it's a very sacred space that an athlete builds around them. So to be part of it, you should really be able to have trust, and they should believe that you can take them to the next part in their journey, whatever that is. So we have structured our programs in that manner. We have athlete scholarships. So athletes apply for our scholarships. Then, we choose which athlete we can actually add value to, who needs us, who can really be impacted by the support. And we now currently support 200 athletes across, more than 23 disciplines. And our aim is, we as Indians, we keep saying we want double-digit Olympic medals, but we don't participate in many of the events that are actually there. So your double-digit medals will happen when you broaden the base of number of athletes going to the Olympics and Paralympics. So I think that is the athlete side of the ecosystem, and the support team, along with their parents, who are the support team and the family of an athlete. Then you have the coach, then you have the school, then you have, maybe the college, and then different entities come forward to support. Obviously, the quantum of support and the money gets more and, higher as you grow. But those initial years are extremely critical for any young athlete. And I feel anybody working with an athlete, irrespective of which stage you come into an athlete's life, you must always acknowledge the support of the early people, because they wouldn't have been there otherwise on their own without the early support. And the other side is really from the CSR side. A lot of people may not know, but India is the first country in the world to mandate CSR, the corporate social responsibility. And we also have a category called training towards Olympic. Sorry, I don't know if I've paused. 1 second. Yeah, okay.
I can hear you.
Yeah. So, there is a category called training towards Olympic, Paralympic, and rural sports. So for us to become a sporting nation, we need corporate India to come forward to, take that element and support grassroots and emerging level sports. Because when you get to the top, everyone wants to support an athlete who's won a medal, right? The athlete sorted for the next 3-4 generations. But that same athlete didn't have the support when they started off. So I think if you are able to turn that mindset, and CSR gives that unique opportunity for corporate India and for individuals to be part of the life of an athlete, because that first international competition, that first international medal, those are special moments they're never going to forget. Even Shiva mentioned that it took him 10 years to, get that international medal, which would probably be the most special, outcome for all the initial years of effort. So I think when we talk athlete, keeping them in the center, but making the coaches part of it, and allowing corporate India to come, can create a faster result for India, especially with the 2036 Olympics and Paralympics. Even if we want to bid, right, it's a very critical position for us to think about, because today's 12, 13, 14-year-olds are going to be our athletes at 2036. So what are we doing for them now, for them to be there? It's not going to be, there could be some athletes who continue to be there till 2036, but not most of them. So the way we approach talent, support, athlete management has to slightly change, and not from the top, but more from, the bottom, I would say.
Right. And that's super interesting. And we're also looking at bringing more young athletes into the fold across different, for example, socioeconomic standing. So every athlete's character arc, you could say, from the beginning of their career will vary depending on maybe, if they're from an urban area or a rural one. So even the average urban Indian athlete has to overcome, the odds to kind of make an impact in the sports space. So when it comes to those from, from grassroots programs or from the rural parts of India, from more remote parts of India, have you worked with an athlete like that, or a few athletes like that who might come to mind? And if you could take us through the journey I understand your part, the bit you mentioned about the monetary support that CSR can provide, but if you can take us through the care and the safety aspects in a little more detail.
Yeah, I think for everyone hearing, they would know Rani Rampal. I think she is an incredible example of someone coming from a very, very humble background. Her father was, a cart puller, and I was working on a day-to-day basis. And she was an extremely gifted and talented young athlete. And at 15, she was making waves already. And fortunately, we got a chance to be part of her journey. And we gave her a scholarship as low as 6,000 rupees a month. It was so low. But that suddenly she became the breadwinner of the family, changed everything for the family. And cut to Paris, I think, to Tokyo. The girls played so well in the hockey team, and she was captaining the hockey team, and they finished fourth. I mean, it was a heartbreak for all of us watching the women's hockey. But I mean, we didn't continue to support her throughout, because we took a conscious decision that we will not work with team sports, because you can't just support one athlete and not the rest of the team. So we consciously worked only on individual sport. But Rani comes to my mind because she was there in the initial years, and if not for that early on support, even continuing to play the sport, because she comes from a town like Shabad, and girls are not allowed to play, not allowed to wear shorts. And today, probably 30-40% of the hockey team comes from that region, thanks to young girls like her who've paved the way. So when you talk about sport, it's not just the winning and the medal, and that's great, but what do you do along the way, right? Can you really inspire the next generation? Can you come out of generational poverty? And I think a couple of years ago, Rani actually sent her housewarming card, and she built a really lovely house in Chavad. It all just adds up, right? Because the journey, what has happened, and that the next couple of generations are not going to go through the similar initial outcomes. So I think sport has a very, very powerful role, especially when you talk about humble backgrounds and people from there. But there should be no misconception made, because someone like an Abhinav had the resources and the money, and then went on to win the gold medal. So sport is pure talent, merit, but who is the team around you that can also get you there? Because ultimately the athlete is supremely talented. You're just making it slightly easier for them to get to their goal faster. But many fall away, fall down along the pathway, because they just can't make it. They can't take up the sport. So whether it's 2 meals a day, I play sport because I get 2 meals, or whether I'll get to be part of a hostel, so I get a safe place to stay, or I get food, I can travel around the world. So the reasons are many, and that's a lot dependent on what's your background, where you come from, how do you get introduced to the sport, um, why are you playing the sport? We always ask our athletes in when we talk to them, why is this important to you? And we try and understand that mindset. And for some, based on what they've seen in life, the answers are all different. So it's not one reason that it takes. So and which is why sport is part of CSR today, to answer your question, because there are elements which are listed in the CSR mandates and objectives, right? Which is your larger SDG goals, which get ticked off through sport. So when you talk education, you say you go from 4th standard to 5th standard to 7th standard. I mean, you follow till 10th. But only in sport, a kid joins the sport, and then you're like, when are you winning a medal? When are you winning a medal? When are you winning a medal? You're not giving them the time to deal with the entire process of learning the sport and growing in the sport to excel or to pass or graduate, right? So I would just urge anyone looking at sport to think of this long term, to think of this as talent and merit, and then community as well. And where do you want to play? Which part of that pyramid do you want to play at? Because every level needs the support. The elite needs, the emerging needs, the grassroots needs. So when you design or choose to support an athlete, what is it that, where is the part do you feel most excited to play in, I would say?
Thank you. Thank you for that, Deepthi. That was very genuinely inspiring and yeah, I mean, it's very thought-provoking because it's fascinating how GoSports uses sports. I mean, sport, of course, is a massive soft power, you could say, and how they use it, you use it as a vehicle for social change. And there are a lot of other social causes that can be tied into as well. That, like, I've followed Shiva's, Shiva's spoken publicly about sustainability and how that ties into the Winter Olympics. So, Shiva, recently in one of our monthly SPORTSCOM meetings, we had Mr. Sarmad Hafiz from the Department of Sports and Youth Affairs, Jammu and Kashmir, speaking about how the Khelo India Winter Games took place recently. And he also spoke a lot about how much the sports landscape there has transformed. And I remember mentioned about how it's great for skiing, Gulmarg, and how because of the quality and the depth of the snow, I believe, and how in the summer it turns into meadows which have where people can play golf. So could you, as Indians, I guess we're a little more, even though we have the Himalayas, where I'm now right now doing this live from, in fact, sitting in Bhimtal. So, while we have that, we look at it as a tropical country, and it's not what we would normally associate with Indian athletes. So, could you maybe elaborate a little bit on that, and also how sustainability is an important aspect of Winter Olympics and Winter Games?
Yeah. Well, first of all, if I can just make a little comment on what Deepthi was saying earlier, rather to add to it. I mean, she spoke about Rani. I have the pleasure to know her and work alongside her. She's, even after her sports career, she's now coaching at the SAI, helping out younger generation of athletes. She's part of the Indian Olympic Association Athletes Commission. So, when you're investing in a sports person, sportsman or sportswoman, you're investing in leaders of tomorrow, and these people are going to create impacts which is far beyond your current understanding. So the investment in sport is something that continues to pay back even once you yourself stop thinking about it. That is one, and obviously we need leaders in each community, right? Because each of these athletes who travel the world, they come back with new ideas, and they become role models that people can actually relate to, in their own areas, towns, speaking their language, and this really pushes the development agenda of the country forward. Okay. Coming back to what you were saying about sport and access to sport, I think sport depends upon circumstance and availability. You cannot decide to make a sport infrastructure where there's nobody and then think that, okay, people are going to come here. No, it has to be something that people have access to on a daily basis, right? So, which is one of the things that we need to address if we want to unlock our potential. In terms of winter sports, we're not expecting winter sports to be popular, in Kanyakumari or in Gujarat or in other places where the conditions are not there. I'm not saying it's impossible. There are people who've very successfully crossed over from different sports and made a mark internationally, not just talking about in India, at a Olympic gold medalist level. However, for areas such as Jammu Kashmir, where you mentioned, where there are a lot of social problems, there are a lot of youth unemployment issues. There's a lot of concern about where young people are putting their energies. In Punjab, we have issues of substance abuse by youth. So to address all these, you need to give them space in which they can focus their energy and their efforts in a positive way, right? And so this is why sports is, on the United Nations Charter, right? Of the larger value that it brings to a society. I think it we have to relook at sports, looking at the utility of spaces. The sports venues must have legacy plans, and it should be we should see understand how these venues can be used over time and across the year. Like when you're mentioning about the Gulmarg slopes in Kashmir, it's the same slope. In the winter, it's covered by snow. You can do your skiing, your snowboarding. If you have a frozen, water body, you can do your ice skating over it. In the summer, these same areas can be, repurposed for BMX, trail running, golf. So we have to look at it in a smart, sustainable way. And winter sports in particular, we have to understand that it's a huge multi-billion-dollar industry worldwide. All right. And in India, despite having one of the longest and highest mountain ranges in the world, we have not really unlocked the potential for the winter sports industry. Now, if we take a step back and look at how Europe was faring in the 40s, all right, the alpine regions, many of the regions that have become today some of the poshest tourist destinations in the world, they were the backward areas because they weren't developed. And then you see the moment you start to develop these destinations as tourist mixed use activity hubs, you have people flocking over there, right? Because you're giving access. So that is what, for example, a place like Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Ladakh, you have this potential, right, to create a completely new market opportunity and create significant wealth for the local population, because tourism and sports is also a huge employer, right? You need coaches, you need guides, you need all kinds of technical officials, you need people that are working in events. A whole lot of things we can do in sport. And Kashmir, we've had a very, very successful Khelo India Winter Games, where the great understanding with the Jammu Kashmir administration. Of course, the Khelo India Winter Games was completely funded by the Sports Authority of India, the Sports Ministry, and that is amazing because you gave such amazing facilities to young athletes who are coming from, who are used to walking up and down their mountain slopes to get 2 runs in a day. Suddenly, they're being flown in to Srinagar. They've been driven up to Gulmarg, being put up at nice hotels, being given daily good food, nutritious food. Then you have the free gondola pass to go up and down. So this is the kind of access then that opens the mind of athletes and allows them to dream and to aim higher. So this is something that we really need to look at, because sports, and specifically winter sports, considering that many of these areas are underdeveloped, it can be a huge tool for social mobility, for development of the region, and for wealth generation, not just for the local population, but for corporates as well. So I think for corporates, of course, you have this vehicle of CSR, which kind of obliges people to give back, and luckily for us, sports is part of this, right? And we'll see more and more investment going towards sport. But also for corporates, this creates long-term engagement with people. We must understand that if a tag of a corporate supporting a sports person or a sport sticks, it remains in the mind of your consumers, of the sports fans, for decades at a time. It's an emotional connect which uh, you cannot replicate just by putting out an ad or putting out anything else, because these people are emotionally invested for corporate India to get involved in the success story. And, we want our country to
Right, Shiva, it seems
in,
you're
the
breaking up
leadership
a
of the world.
bit. Sorry. Hi, are you back with
Hi,
us?
yeah,
Yeah, it was
yes, yes,
breaking up
I am.
just a bit. So we lost you a few seconds ago.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
you were talking about corporate India, right?
yes, so I was saying that it's an sport, as you mentioned, has also huge soft power around the world. And it is the best way for us to, if we want to let the world know that we've reached somewhere. It is also the advancement in sport is also an indicator of the development of a society. And so all these are markers that we can use to establish our rightful place or the place that we aspire to in the rest of the world. So investing in these things is also investing in quality of life.
Right. And when it comes to your journey, you've had quite the character arc yourself, right? From athlete to sports administrator, and which you took us through, and now deputy chef de mission. So, like you were mentioning, athletes are taken out of their native habitats and, transplanted in the case of Paris Olympics to the other side of the world for Indian athletes. So I'm curious to know about what really goes into building Team India. Who are the people involved? What are the challenges? And what is the emotional landscape, most importantly, of the athlete who has been brought to a new place and is under immense pressure as they're representing the country?
Well, that's a great question, and I hope I can try to address at least some parts of it because first of all, there are so many stakeholders involved in building an athlete. That it's impossible to have everybody on board at an event such as the Olympics. I mean, it starts with the athletes' families, you know, people who've given that opportunity to their kid to go. And many times they don't even get to go to the Olympic Games, right? They have to watch. If it is even shown on TV, then they get to sit at home and watch. Then you have the coaches, so many levels of coaches that have been with that athlete, the personal coaches. You have all the organizations, such as GoSports that has been working with the athletes. You don't have an official place in the team. The sports federations themselves are allocated a very limited quota of support staff that can go and travel as part of the official delegation. So, despite all of this, how do we create an environment within the Olympic Village where we have all the essentials that the athletes, they have access to coaches, they have access to physiotherapists, they have access to, mental conditioning, psychologists, medicine. How do we make this happen, right? So it's you always, because it's a limited number, you always have to exclude some people, and definitely we're not happy with that. But despite everything, we have to make sure that these athletes still are within their comfort level. Consider that these guys have to now go and compete in front of 1.5 billion people watching them and expecting them to win, right? So how do you make sure that they don't feel that pressure, that they feel that they're in a supportive environment, a nurturing environment, and so this is one of the important tasks, in how we are able to perform at the Olympics. I mean, we've seen in the past also many times our athletes, we are expecting them to perform, but just because of the pressure of such an event, you're not able to do that, which is why experience is also important, the exposure, and the confidence, and how we are judging success. We as a nation, we should be supporting our athletes whether they win or lose. You can't turn against our athletes the moment that they let 1 point go or something like that. So this is also part of the larger sporting culture, to be able to get behind and to back our people and understand that how do we measure success. Is success, just that, little golden, medallion that they're giving you once every 4 years? Or is success something that, okay, we are building an image of a person who stands for something, stands for certain values, that we can expect that every time this person comes and turns up on the field, he or she is going to give their best, is going to make us proud, is going to truly be representative of us as a country. I think this is what we need to be creating, and this is how we need to be thinking about it. And therefore, even when corporates are, coming back to the topic of corporate involvement, what kind of ambassadors a corporate wants to have, right? What does this person stand for? Whether he's wearing your logo or not, you're going to be associated with this person, right? And so this is, I think we're speaking to some of the deeper, messages in sport. And the second question about sport career, this is also very interesting to me and to many athletes who are aware that their our careers in sport are very, very limited. You have a very short time frame. You're training for so many years, the same amount of time that you're studying for a job, for example, right? But your job is going to take you through a large part of your life, whereas you've trained the same amount of time for a sport, and then you have only 2-3 years in your prime, and then that's it. And usually what happens is that an athlete doesn't get to quit on his or her own terms. It's either because you've been axed from the team, all right? There are other people who are better than you, or you're just too old, or worse still, you've got injured, or so many things can happen along the way. So it is it's not something that gives you a lot of security and stability. So it's important for athletes also to understand this, that while this is a career, they have to think long term. And there are ways how to make this work for you for a longer term. And that's also something that I was lucky to have been part of, because as an athlete, I was part of a lot of, it started with my athlete advocacy. So I took on a bigger role than just, competing on the field. And then I realized that as an athlete, you meet so many important people, you're exposed to so many important situations, that you can make these work for you in the future as well. You meet heads of state. How many people get that opportunity? In which industry? You meet so many top corporate bosses. Even people who work in that company will probably not see the global CEO, once in their lives. But as an athlete, every big event, you've got ministers, you've got presidents, you've got corporate honchos, everything. You have access to all this. So how do you make this work for you as well? Because you need to think of yourself, you need to think of your long-term future, sustainability. So what we always try to tell athletes is, upskill yourself, plan for your career transition well in time. Now there's such an environment that there are lots of tools available to you. You don't really have to go and reinvent the wheel. You just have to, have that willingness to absorb, right? And make best use of the space where you're in right now, and prep yourself. So if you're doing your education, there's a lot of careers now in sports management, there's a lot of careers in sports science. A lot of corporates are happy to offer career athletes jobs if they have a certain skill set. Being an athlete itself gives you certain values that it's hard to let go of them. Your dedication, your value system, everything. So so think of it in the broader perspective, right? Think of success. We have to change our perspective on these things, and then we will see that as a country, all these things start falling into place. Right now, we're looking at the smaller things. We're looking at let's say the emotions that last a very small amount. But if we want lasting satisfaction, and if we want fulfillment for our country and our athletes, then we really need to think bigger picture.
Thank you. I think that might just be the most fascinating thing about our conversation today, the idea of sustainable success, where it doesn't end in a few years, the career, and also the sports-based value system. I'm really taken with that because it makes a lot of sense, especially for a third person who's not directly in the sports space, and that's actually what SPORTSCOM, Industry Confederation aims to do, to bring together people like the two of you and like-minded people involved in different aspects of the sports ecosystem, whether you're a sports manufacturer, whether you're into sports administration, or just someone who's passionate about sports. I think that's the one thing that all our members have in common. And yeah, I guess this brings us to the bid, right? It's a bit of the elephant in the room with 2030 Youth Olympics and 2036 Olympics. India making a serious bid for to host the Olympics here. So yeah, I just wanted to understand from you what you think maybe some areas are that we can work upon to make sure that it is a legitimate bid and we are well equipped if awarded the place. We can give it a good shot and be a good host for an international level sporting event of this caliber. Either of you.
Deepthi?
Okay. As history goes, every country that's hosted the Olympics has not financially benefited, at least in the early years of the Olympics. But in the last 3-4 Olympic cycles, you've seen organizations come together, countries come together and plan this, because this is not just during the Olympics. The impact of that is going to, the legacy of the Olympics is going to stay forever, right? What we build, what we create, how we create the systems, the stadiums, the infrastructure, the people that need to come in. It needs a lot of things to come together to actually even bid, right? I think apart from the monetary side of it, you need people. You need enough people to come and be part of this whole movement. And it has to be, I personally feel it has to be like a movement of the country where we're all as citizens of this country excited about the Olympics. It can't be one entity or two entities saying that, oh, this is the Olympics of one region or, of one place. It's the Olympics of India. And for that, everyone needs to, come together and feel that pride. And for that to happen, there has to be a P&L drawn out first on how is this going to make economic sense? Because I think in a country like ours, where there are so many other elements which need to be taken care of, this could be considered as a very luxury expense, for the nation to take up. But we have to bring in the elements of how this makes business sense and how many industries can actually be benefited, whether you take tourism or hospitality or infrastructure, or you need probably every single industry to be part of this to make this happen. So even thinking of wanting to bid, I think is a very big leap, giant step that we've taken. And it's great that we're first looking at the youth Olympics, and that will give us a sense before you actually do the next Olympics. But there are many other countries also bidding for this. It's not like it's already been handed over to India, but there's going to be a process. There's going to be a team. There has to be many things that come into play. I have the good fortune of being part of the Target Olympic Podium Scheme, which is under the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sport. And I know that a lot of the conversations are now very long term. It's not about the current Olympics, but it's really about the junior program. What is the talent program? Because you'll need the entire ecosystem to come together, right? Athlete, coach, experts, sports scientists, biomechanists, physios, psychologists. And where are all of them? We actually have very few even today. We lean a lot on international experts, even currently, or people who don't have too much of the experience of actually working with athletes. So like Shiva said, even current athletes taking up different areas, using their experience and coming back into the system would be really valuable. I played only till the state level, but that experience also gave me some insights of how to be a decent sports administrator and learn along the way. So you need all kinds of people, doctors, scientists, everybody with all expertise to come in and make this a movement of India. to see that change. But definitely, I would first say the whole economic impact of what it's going to be to the country, because you're going to be building a lot. But if you take a country like Paris, they have really utilized existing spaces. They've thought about sustainability, and what is the after use of these spaces after the games, even from a electricity use. For example, they don't have ACs, but they've built the village in such a way which is going to be able to control the heat, because it's going to be a very, very hot Olympics. So they have thought about that and built it into their infrastructure. So we are really expecting the most sustainable games in the history, at least that's what the news reports say. And so there's a lot of stuff and lots of minds that need to come in. It just can't be sports people, sports administrators planning the Olympics. I think it's a large decision of the country, and probably every single ministry will have to rope in their experts and all the leaders and researchers to come in and make this happen. But it is super exciting. Like I said, maybe even 2 Olympics back, you would have never thought that India will uh, probably bid for it. But the fact that we're talking about it is really special. So really looking forward to what it holds for all of us and for India.
Yeah, likewise. And this is something that at SportsCom, of course, we're going to be following closely and doing everything we can to support. You spoke about the Paris Olympics coming up in July, of course. So every Olympic season, Team India seems to make an impact in a new type of sport, whether it's hockey or whether it was javelin throw with Neeraj Chopra and boxing, wrestling. So this year, can you hazard a guess at what that sport is going to be? What is going to be the breakthrough sport for Indian athletes? And what else are you looking forward to at Paris 2024?
I think new sports, we did do a couple of new sports even in Tokyo. I think we had India's first fencer, Bhavani Devi, who made it. We never thought a fencer would get to the Olympics. What's really interesting, in a 4-year time frame, if everything goes well, there's 1 or 2 more fencers who might actually make it. So, to be able to create that pathway, because you don't want one and then nobody after that. I think that would be really interesting. Athletics is super exciting right now. All the jumps and the throws. We have athletes, even in Neeraj's event, you might have 2 or 3 Indians participating in it. And I think that's incredible, right? In track and field and athletics and India, you don't say all of those things together. So I think we've come a long way. Our shooters are exceptional. You have very, very young athletes who are aiming to give their best. I don't know how many people would be aware, but in shooting, you win the quota for the country. Then you have a trials, and then you decide who goes to the team. So the pressure these young athletes are going through and will be going through, because you won the quota, and typically in any other sport, if you won it for yourself and the country. But over here, you win it for the country, and then you have the trials, right? And depending on that time. So I think it'll be an exciting games. It's unfortunate that our women's hockey team is not going to be there, so our contingent size might be slightly smaller. But uh, it's probably taking the Tokyo results forward, I would say. I'm not going to be able to put a number or comment on that, but definitely I think the way our athletes are training, the kind of support they've been able to receive so far, to train with the free, mind space, which is the most important thing. I believe to some extent we have come a long way, given all stakeholders are talking and working with each other. But at the end of the day, sport is sport, and that day is as unique as it can be. And you can only control the controllables, and you don't know what can show up on that day. So you just have to be prepared and wait and watch.
Sports flows into philosophy very easily, I'm realizing after this conversation with the both of you. So any words for Team India as my last question? Please come up with a few for our audience today. Thank you so much for your time. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you. Shiva, all yours.
Yeah, well, thanks so much. And I guess, I would just say never give in, do your best. And we are here to support you no matter what. And looking forward to see a lot of breakthrough performances at Paris for sure. And we're all one team, one country, no matter, what company you're from, what state you're from. So it's great, to all of us come together and to give our best and then to celebrate together as well.
For me, I think I'm also part of the SPORTSCOM team, so it's really heartening to, have like-minded people who are so invested in sports and who want to see sport and also explore the business side of sport, because we're really touching the surface right now. And if we get this right, I think sport is only here to stay. So wherever it's possible, think long term, I would say. Any decisions, not in the short term. Think 2036, we have a lovely 13-year, headway to really think of what we want to become as a nation. But most importantly, support an athlete in the younger years. All the money you're ready to spend when they get that medal, if we kind of get it in earlier, you can get more medals. So, rather than giving everything to the top, kind of break it up and spread it out, and more companies in sport, because a lot of the services we use are from international countries, right? We don't have a lot of stuff that we use here, at least at some of the elite sports levels, whether it's recovery and sports science elements. So I'd love for India to create all the stuff where we can use Indian products and services and technology for our athletes to excel. So yeah, and keep cheering. Olympics and Paralympics, don't forget, it's just 3 weeks later. So it's happening at the same place, same venue, and we're probably going to have one of our largest contingents at the Paralympics as well this time, and hopefully many more medals. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I feel like any athlete or anyone would be lucky to have either of you as a mentor. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aditi. Appreciate it.
Thanks.